Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and welcome to my blind reaction to Vox Machina Season 2, Episode 4. Um, I think it's been a couple weeks since we last got to this. The last episode we got to, they were going into the tomb. The other two who were with them kind of just ran off somewhere. Who knows where they ended up going. But they unlocked a mysterious casket, I guess you could call it, that ended up seemingly killing Vex. Now, either she's going to end up surviving this after all, because it's it's difficult to kill off a main character and make it feel right, especially with a trap like that. But also remember, this is based off a D&D campaign. And when something like this happens in D&D, you get saving throws. From my experience, usually 3. You get 3 chances to basically come back to 1 health. And so it's basically dependent on that whether or not the character survives. Like, she'd be in really bad condition if she does, but she could survive. And I kind of made a point last time as well that it's like Vex is, like, without question, easily my least favorite of the group. And honestly, I don't like her. It's not even just that she's my least favorite by default. I don't like her. Like, I've pointed out many times how much of a bitch I think she is. She's just really kind of terrible. She antagonizes the others for no reason in ways that even, like, others of them don't do. Like, yeah, you could say, like, oh, they all antagonize each other sometimes, but more in a jokey way, like when a friend, like, punches you in the shoulder. It's not like they're actually attacking you, they're just messing with you. But no, she actively has antagonized them to the point of just being a bitch, especially the likes of Keyleth, who is, like, the nicest, most friendly, likable member of their squad, and there's literally zero reason to ever antagonize her. She does nothing that it warrants it. Pretty much everyone else has done something that could warrant that kind of attitude towards them, except Keyleth. Like, Percy's done it plenty, especially in season 1. Scanlan does it pretty much every episode. Vax has definitely done it. Even Grog. Hell, Pike is probably the closest one otherwise. But, like, she can even be a little bit of a troublemaker sometimes. We've seen that. She has a mischievous streak to her. But Keyleth is just so actively sweet and kind and caring and lovely. It's like the very idea of antagonizing her just kind of makes no sense. It's like, why would you do that? And again, it's like, it's not even just her. Vex has been known to just go after the other members of the group for no reason, no valid reason. And it's just like, she's just so aggressively antagonistic towards them without actually being a bad guy and everything. Because I definitely don't think she's a bad guy. I would say without question she is a good guy here. But it's just the way she acts is still so antagonistic. And I've made it clear I don't like her. I've made it clear that it's like she's like the one character in the group I wouldn't be sad over if she died. And I didn't shed a tear for her last time. I was more sad for Vax because, I like Vax. I was sad that he was so sad. But I had no sadness for Vex. And that might sound cruel, that might sound heartless, and I'm sorry if it does to you, but I don't know if it's just media like this. It's probably not. Um, but in in recent years, I guess you could say, I've grown a lot more numb to feeling sympathy and empathy towards people I really don't like. Let's put it that way. People who bother me based on um their morals, their ideals, their philosophies and beliefs and everything. It's like there's grown a certain point where I've just become numb to certain people if I find them to be gross or bad or antagonistic enough to just not be able to like at all. It's to the point where it's like it sounds harsh when I say things like I don't care if they live or die like this, but it's just there's a certain point where maybe it just broke me, where fictional characters like this, and even in some cases real life people who are just that terrible, that evil, where it's just like it's just gotten to the point where it's like I'm normally a very like nice person by nature. I'm more like Keyleth than any other member of this group, except maybe I'm like Keyleth, but as horny as Scanlan. I got Scanlan's horniness. But in all seriousness, I'm very much in a lot of ways like Keyleth. But just again, over the past years or so, just a lot of things in the world has just really gotten me to feel very what's apathetic. I was trying to think of the word. Very apathetic towards people like that. Like I just I have this like, and it's not apathetic towards what they do and what they say, that all the evil that they spew and stuff. It's more like what apathetic towards whatever happens to them. It's like I don't give a shit if they die. I will not shed a tear. And there, okay, I'll give you some specific examples because I'm probably explaining this poorly. There was a radio guy who was very far right conservative, um, to the point of spreading conspiracy theories, to the point of basically just being a far right talking head without any kind of personality outside of that of his own. And he used his platform to not only spread misinformation but to spread evil ideals that actively cause people harm, to spread ideals that would cause people to do things like the January 6th insurrection, for example, for those who know, as well as various other aggressively dangerous attacks and whatnot. And it's one of those cases where he would never say anything directly, but would very much like hint at it, like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of thing. And on top of all of that, obviously you have like racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia mixed in there, stuff like that as well. And it's just it's to the I had gotten to the point where it's like it was announced that he had died, and my first reaction was good. And I wouldn't have said I wouldn't have thought something like that originally. My first thought would have used to be like I I don't feel sorry for him, but at the same time I don't wish death upon anyone. And I would have felt sad that he couldn't have changed his life. But now I just think good. The world needs less him in it. The world needs less people like him in it. Honestly, I not only don't feel bad for his death, I believe the world is an actively better place without him in it. And again, maybe I've just become cold and jaded and everything towards people like this. Towards people who I find to be this aggressively unlikable. Whether for, horribly bigoted reasons, their beliefs and ideals and all being just that evil and terrible, or just because they're an active piece of shit towards everyone around them, and people they're supposed to call friends and family and stuff, and are constantly instead antagonistic towards and treating like shit because I guess they have trauma in their background, but that's not an excuse. Trauma is never an excuse to take out anything on other people. So, I apologize for this kind of long rant here to start off this video and everything. But I wanted to make it clear my thoughts on Vex here. I wanted to make it absolutely clear that I feel nothing about her death here. I think I've seen a reaction or two where the reactor was really shocked and upset by this. I'm not. I'm just not, and I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say otherwise. Garbage truck. And I think I think when I kind of mentioned briefly this kind of thing last time, it was brought up in the comments. I could check real quick. But yeah, it's just, again, I can't lie about that kind of stuff. But let's see here. Yeah, okay, so, I won't say who it was, but, commenter mentioned in the last reaction, saying that Vex was pretty good to Percy, not horrible, but not warm and cuddly to anybody either. Sort of like a person who has to keep their walls up to avoid getting hurt. And this was a big thing that I very heavily disagreed with when I first read this. It's like, no, the thing is, she is horrible to pretty much everyone. And yeah, she's less horrible to Percy than maybe to others. Like, she's been a lot worse to Keyleth, to her own brother, and so on and so forth, but that doesn't mean she hasn't been horrible to him. She's been horrible to pretty much everyone. Every chance she gets, she's just being a bitch. And it doesn't come across as just someone who's keeping their walls up to avoid getting hurt. It comes across as someone who just doesn't understand how to be nice. And whether or not there's a reason for that within her backstory, there's never a reason to treat other people like that. Especially as aggressively as she does. And the commenter even says, Vax is more aloof than abrasive. Like, Vax feels more like someone who's kept his walls up. And that Keyleth is kind of the first person who's broken them down, let's be honest. And you could make the argument that, oh, Vex sees that Vax and Keyleth are getting super close, and she's scared that she's going to lose him. We even saw the flashback where it's like, it's shown that they value each other very highly. But that's also not an excuse. In fact, that's actually kind of creepy. The entire thing of a sibling being like so possessive of their sibling to the point of getting extremely defensive and aggressive if someone else gets close to them is fucking creepy. I'm sorry, it's not okay. That's not healthy. That's not okay in any sense of the word. It's like, it's not as creepy as like Yuri from Spy Family, who very clearly has a thing for his sister. But it's almost as bad. It's just without that kind of side to it too. It's an obsession, an unhealthy obsession. And there's nothing wrong with having a very close relationship with your sibling. It's just like, it gets to a point where it's a little much. And it caused Vex to just be absolutely fucking terrible. And that's not okay. But the point is, if Vex does die, I'm not going to be broken up about it. I don't think she's going to. Like, for good, I mean. But if she does, I won't be broken up about it. I honestly won't care. Honestly, I think... And it's nothing, again, I want to make it clear, it's nothing against Laura Bailey or the writing or anything like that. It mostly just comes down to, I just really can't stand this kind of character. And even if it was not, maybe not intended to be this way, and hell, she might not have even been this bad in the actual campaign. It might be just because of how the series has to be done and condensed and everything that might make it seem worse than it was in the campaign. But it's like, I can't stand her. So she would honestly just not worry me. I'm again bad at wording things, especially since I've not been awake long. It would not bother me at all if she remained dead. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I've ranted on about this long enough. Let's just get to the episode. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then back... After it fades to black and then back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, Vax has become a brooding, edgy boy now. because in order to save Vex's life, he had to give up his freedom and become the champion of the Matron of Ravens. All right. Don't know what exactly that means yet, but we could see that he's being given these visions. Fun. Seriously, don't really know what that means. How that's going to come into play or whatnot. But what we can tell at the moment is that he is kind of becoming like very angsty and whatnot because of it. Him hitting Percy was completely uncalled for. Percy honestly didn't even need to apologize. Like, he didn't do anything wrong. Like, there was literally no way to anticipate that kind of thing. Did he act maybe a little quickly? Maybe, but again, there was no way to anticipate that was going to happen. He didn't do anything. So you can't blame him for Vex's death there. I like the implication that the revival spell on its own would have worked if they weren't in the temple. Because it's very much implied that it would have worked otherwise. The only issue was that they were in the temple and that the Matron of Raven's influence within the temple is extremely strong, which makes sense. And because Vex was killed by something within the temple, it probably, the reason we saw the Matron like trying to like get Vex's soul and everything was more than likely because due to the location and means of death, she was probably owed the soul. It was like her property at that point or something. I assume it's something in that kind of realm. So when Vex said take me instead, the matron saw the opportunity for a new champion and used that opportunity, allowing Vex to be brought back. I assume that's what it was too. Like she didn't I don't think she brought back Vex on her own, but I might be wrong. Maybe she did. I was thinking like maybe it was like that she allowed the spell to fully activate in the end. But also she kind of broke the spell first, so it's like I'm not sure. But either way, so Vex was brought back, which isn't a surprise. It is a surprise, though, that Vex ended up going through this. But with him now being an edgy boy, that's obviously going to affect relationships with the likes of Keyleth and all. Wonder how that's all going to go down. What I can say for sure is that we're going to have to wait and see to see exactly how it affects the rest of the party. Wouldn't it be interesting now if, due to that death experience and all, Vex actually becomes a lot nicer to everyone and Vax ends up becoming the asshole? Just kind of doing a role reversal there. That would be pretty interesting. I will give it that. Vex was also given the amulet that, caused the creature to come out in the first place because it was being held in there. As basically an apology for them setting the monster loose on Vox Machina. And so Vex is like, you know what I can store in here? Come here, Trinket. Let's have a pocket bear. It's like, okay. Why not? I mean, I get the idea wanting to keep Trinket out of trouble and out of danger because she cares for Trinket, let's be honest, more than pretty much anyone else. Because she raised Trinket from a cub. And so now we kind of get more info on that. We do get to see Trinket fight a little bit here. But yeah, with this, she can keep Trinket safe and always have him with her, too. So, never needs to be left behind again. um, but yeah, the the idea of them, of Cash and what's her face unleashing the giant monster, more of her idea than Cash's, but unleashing the giant monster on them and everything was so fucking stupid. It's like, you couldn't even handle this thing. Why would you think this would be a good idea? Like, seriously? But Vax manages to take it out, manages to defeat it with his newfound powers, especially speed. So it all works out in the end, and Cash helped unpetrify everyone. But yeah, that was just a stupid decision. And yeah, I mean, it was a well-made episode. And I want to make it clear here, like, although, like, I mentioned, like, I would not be sad if she died, like, permanently. I'm not necessarily upset or angry that she didn't. I'm not, like, pissed that she survived or anything like that. I'm not even, like, disappointed in that. I'm just like, okay, I'm not surprised. Because I expected that. I expected it, and honestly, it just made sense that she would survive. It's like, again, with D&D, like, when you're just playing a game, like, yeah, player characters can die. I've had it happen to me. A bad situation and bad saving throws, it's like, yeah, easily. Um, I'm trying to think of how this would have gone in the actual campaign, though. Like, I'm sure, like, all of this was happening, and it's like, they're trying to revive her and everything, but then, Vax's actor, God, who plays Vax? It's like, I remember most of them, but it's like, Vax is like, who was that again? Hold on. I have this muted, so. Liam O'Brien. Like, I'm imagining him, like, yelling out just kind of out of nowhere, take me instead. And Matt, like, looking over and just, like, it clicking in his head the idea. And it's like, and him just going, like, the matron of Ravens looks over to you and accepts your offer. But not in the way you think. I just, like, imagine that kind of being, like, how it went or something. Um, just a very spur of the moment thing, and that's part of D&D anyway, like improvising stuff like that. Because part of the appeal is definitely the players just doing whatever the fuck they want, improvising their options. So the GM or DM, whichever term you want to use, usually has to be able to work with those improvisations and improvise themselves. And Matt Mercer, I very much believe, can. I need to get back to the next part of that Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom one shot, because I am enjoying it, and you see that kind of stuff in there. You see how he reacts and how he what he does in relation to what everyone else is asking to do. And it's just like, I think it's like really cool to see that without having to watch like dozens of hours of a campaign. I wonder, do they have any other one shots that I could watch? Like, again, it's like not a campaign, not like their Vox Machina or Mighty Nine campaigns or anything like that. Just like a one shot, like just like maybe 5-6 hours, something like that. Something that's a little easier to digest that I could watch like bit by bit here and there. because again, the Tears of the Kingdom one is pretty good, and I do really enjoy it. But I cannot dedicate myself to like dozens of hours for that. Not for something like that. See, if it's like if it were like a show, like if they had an animated series that went along with all of that, that would be like, yeah, I could watch that. Because that's in that case, that'd just be like watching One Piece. That 1,000 episodes of that, yeah, it's like yeah. But like watching a D&D campaign is like if it just be too much at that point for me. Like I can watch like again these one shot stuff, but anywho, point is, yeah, this episode pretty much went mostly where I was expecting. I didn't necessarily expect Vax to become the champion of the Matron of Ravens, but like otherwise, it went pretty much where I expected. With Vex surviving, Vax willing to die for her, to save her and everything. Even the other two trying to betray them again. It's like, yeah, yeah. I mean, we knew we hadn't seen the last of them, so I figured they would come back and try to betray them to get the vestige. It's like, just made sense. Um, I didn't necessarily expect a giant tentacle monster, but I mean, whoever does. Like, unless maybe you're Scanlan, whoever expects a giant tentacle monster. But even he said that making a joke about that was too easy. Um, so yeah, some interesting stuff in this. One thing I want to point out, and this will probably be just the last thing here. Um, you notice the part where Scanlan like was working like extra hard to save Pike and all, and when they got petrified, it was like when they were reaching out to each other and grabbing at each other's hands. There's been quite a little bit of hints of a romance between them. Like, has anybody else noticed that? Like, not just in this episode, but in the series as a whole, they've been like poking at the idea of these two getting together. Like, I didn't like after like Pike came back, didn't like Scanlan ask her out, and she like jokingly said yes, and it's like they've been poking at the idea of these two like getting together, and I do worry that it's just because they're the smaller members of the crew that they're like put together because of this, but I don't know. It might also just be because maybe Sam Riegel and Ashley Johnson are pretty close. Maybe they're like really close friends and everything, and just decided to go with this on their own. I don't know. I don't know the reason they decided to work this, but I think they're going to get together because this this series at least is hinting at that a lot. Like a lot. It just feels like very notable. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I actually kind of dig the idea of Scanlan, who's just constantly horny, genuinely falling in love with someone, and the idea of it being Pike, who, while is a bit of a little mischievous gremlin herself, is also very, kind and holy and everything. It's like the idea is like they kind of balance each other out a little bit, but also they would definitely go on mischievous adventures together. Um, so a little interesting there, but it's kind of sad for Grog at the same time because it's like he and Pike have known each other for so long, and it just kind of worked there as well. And I didn't really like ship Scanlan with anyone else anyway, though, so I guess it kind of works if you want to have a ship between members of the crew. It's like nothing else really works, I feel. Like, except maybe Vax and Keyleth, but I don't know. They played with the idea, but it also seems like they've kind of like actively abandoned the idea. Like they actively seem to have just abandoned that. So I don't know if that's even going to be brought back at this point. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Tell me in the comments below, though, what you thought of this episode of Vox Machina. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.